Well, good morning, everyone. Saturday, November 11th, and I'm happy to welcome you to this little talk around Megapotencies, creative homeopathy, and Healy, partnering with quantum technology. And many of you I know from different homeopathy groups on Facebook, or you've attended other talks or events, group events that I've done, or you've been a client. So welcome. This will be probably a lot of me talking, and I will eventually open up to some questions, but you're welcome to throw things in the chat. I will get to that get to those when I can. Um, and hopefully this will be inspiring, informative, and uh, fun for you today. And maybe a little bit intense. We'll see. Um, so my name is David Chitara. I I practice evolutionary astrology, homeopathy, and flower essences. And before I get too far into where I'm to my background, let me just read this little obligatory disclaimer. This is for education and information purposes only. It's not medical advice. So please consult your physician if you have any medical questions, and please take your own personal responsibility for your health care. All right. So I have been a practicing astrologer, evolutionary astrologer, for over 20 years, ER nurse for a quarter of a century, um, and more recently was certified in homeopathy and flower essences. Um, I love life, and I consider myself to be a mystic, and I love to sing. Um, Probably won't sing today, but I have sung before on these kind of events. Um, So maybe, I've introduced myself a little bit. Maybe you could put in the chat, like, where are you calling in from today? Where are you, where do you live? And just say hello. You got Dallas, Ohio, Idaho, Nebraska. Cool. Got California, San Diego. I didn't realize you lived in Canada, Ashley. Massachusetts, Minnesota, Florida. Nice. Well, welcome. Thanks for taking some time on your Saturday to be here with me. Um, Quincy, California. Yeah. So astrology has been a big part of my work for a long time with people. And initially, with evolutionary astrology, I'm going to show my chart just because we're going to go into a little bit of my story with what I've experienced with homeopathy and these different modalities. And so I think it's helpful. Um, Another one from Florida. Yeah, thanks. Um, you don't need to believe in astrology or anything like that. This is just a lens that I use working with people that has been very helpful for my clients and also for me. And when I learned this type of astrology, it's very much tied into like what did you come into this life for? What's kind of the soul history prior to this life? So there is kind of an understanding or an assumption that there's history prior to this life. You can either believe in reincarnation or you can believe in ancestors or both. So you can kind of switch it up to fit your belief system, but it really helps to get a sense of the deeper why of what has happened and what you're maybe struggling with and what's the evolutionary edge of the soul. Um, so I'm going to point out a couple things in my chart. So if you and you don't need to know anything about astrology, so if this looks like Greek to you and you're like, what's going on here, that's okay. Just relax and just be. Um, but I have a lot of Leo in my chart. I'm a double Leo. and, 4 planets plus the ascendant in Leo. And a lot of people, when they hear that I'm a Leo, at least earlier in my life, they're a little bit surprised, that I have so much Leo in my chart because and the reason why is because I got Saturn here, but I've also got all this Leo is squaring what I think is really important parts of the chart, the nodal axis. So the south node of the moon, we don't bring conscious memory of our prior lives or our ancestry into this life. We bring in more the cellular emotional memory. And so the nodes of the moon speak to kind of the emotional memory, the emotional content, the cellular memory that we kind of come into this life with. And by looking at the nodes of the moon and what's aspecting it and all this stuff, you can get a sense of like what's the themes that the soul was working on prior to this life, maybe where they got hung up. And for me, all of my Leo energy is squaring my nodes. And so that means that Leo creative, boisterous, being able to express myself has been difficult for me. It's something, it's a part of me that I cut off from. So a big part of my work in this life is to reintegrate that. Um, just to give you a sense of what astrology can kind of point to. I'm not going to go into much more detail, but I do want to point out that the north node of the moon is kind of where our soul is reaching for in this life. What we're desiring to have more experience of, what we're needing to experience in order for our soul to really grow in this life. And for me, my north node is in Scorpio down here at the bottom of the chart with Uranus, and that really points to the need to dive into some really dark territory, really old, deep memory. And Uranus often relates to past life memory because it's ancient memory. Um, and then also related to sexuality and sex and a relationship. And this kind of is related to the ancestors as well. So I'm just doing a little foreshadowing for where we're going, pointing that out. You'll see why. Um, and I will say that the chart does kind of reveal ways to work and uh, and helps a person kind of relax into why they're experiencing what they're experiencing, and it points to tools that they need to be able to grow and evolve. Um, but I desired really early on to start helping people shift things more quickly and more easily. And so I developed, I learned intuitive healing and hypnotherapy, and worked with those tools for many years with people, working to clear and integrate and resolve things. Um, and I just kind of came to a point where I needed to find a different tool. It was kind of too much for me. And so homeopathy and flower essences have kind of uh, really come to the forefront for me. Um, so before we go a little further, I'm going to just talk about um, some of what I consider foundational principles of healing, and these are by no means exhaustive, um, but I think they're important. So all disease originates within. It's all an inside job. So if you can truly allow yourself to get that, maybe that's a hard pill to swallow for some people, and I totally understand that. But in my experience, and in my experience with working with lots of people and other people's experience, it's all inside. It's all internal. We've created what we're experiencing, um, and I get that that's sometimes really hard to accept. Um, but it can be very empowering to get to the place of really knowing that, accepting that. Um, Everything is ultimately for my good. So even if it's a challenging or traumatic or difficult experience, it really is ultimately for my good. I mean, I don't, maybe I get to see that further down the road of how. Um, but I think it's important to realize that everything is really for our good. Feeling is necessary for healing. because feeling unlocks memories, it unlocks potential, and it unlocks hidden places. And then our greatest wound or weakness really does become our greatest strength. That's the potential. Um, and then the last one I have here is all symptoms are logical, meaning that there is a purpose to every symptom that you're having. It's communicating something to you. Whether we're able to decode that or unlock that or listen to what it's saying is another thing. Um, and sometimes that takes creativity and intuition and grace to really understand. But once you can understand what the symptoms are pointing to, the disease really, you've won a lot of the battle. Um, is this resonating with anyone? If you could just put maybe a yes or no or something in the chat, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks, Corinne. Yeah. And Linda says some are born with physical deformities. Yes, and that there's perfection in that. Is there, there's purpose and reason for that, and that's not something that I can tell that person. That's something that that person or that family has to discover for themselves. So, yeah, that there's some of us that are really born in challenging circumstances, and I really believe that is for our good, our evolution. There's purpose and meaning. So, something I like to talk about when it comes to healing and anything really is what I perceive to be the shifting of the ages from Pisces to Aquarius, and how that relates to healing. There's um, in the age of Pisces, which we could say began probably 2,600 years ago, around the time of Buddha, Jesus, um, those avatars. Um, and a calming down, let's say, that, really for the purpose of calming down out of the age of Aries, which was the age that came before. And Aries is the god of war. I mean, we're obviously experiencing war now, but we're living with these archetypes all the time. But the sign that rules the current age is a foundational, fundamental rock um, backdrop for everything that's happening in life. Um, and the age of Pisces it's about the ocean. It's about kind of dissolving into the one. And I feel like, even the sacrifice of the Christ, in the crucifixion, that there was a invitation in a way that we were all invited into a crucifixion, um, and a taking on of, we could say, karma or ancestors stuff, um, which I feel in the age of Pisces, we were all kind of swimming in the collective, what we could say, unconscious of our ancestors and of the world. And moving into the age of Aquarius, it's really about coming up out of the ocean. I mean, and I'm making broad strokes here because I don't have time to go into this in any depth, but coming up out of the ocean and transmuting um, that water into our own individual expression of uniqueness and individuality. And I like this tensegrity model right here as a good kind of depiction of what Aquarius is about. Because if we're all being invited to take up our unique place. Sometimes that means we have to leave our family. Sometimes that means we have to do something, move across the country, or there's processes and journeys that we have to go on to discover what our individual expression is. Um, and if we can all kind of take our place, there's a lifting up, there's a rising of all of humanity. And so I see right now in healing, like we're really needing to do deep work individually to kind of release ourselves from the hold of the ancestral karmic stuff that is keeping us from being able to fully express our uniqueness and our individuality. Um, and it's modalities like homeopathy and frequency medicine that are going to be really important for that are crucial for that evolution. Um, and I like to say that one of the really cool signs, important signs of the fact that we moved from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius, because it's really hard to tell in the sky based on the astronomy, because the signs are not all equally 30 degrees and it's not all nice and neat. Um, but I think two really important indicators are the Wright brothers' discovery of flight. So when we left the Earth, we were able to fly, which Aquarius is an air sign. Um, and also even 9/11, and Aquarius being the 11th sign of the zodiac, and the twin towers looking almost like an 11 in the skyline, and this world impacting trauma that we all experienced on 9/11, to me, was kind of an indication of we've entered in the age of Aquarius, because Aquarius does have a lot of connection to trauma, especially when it comes to the south node of the moon. Um, so that's a really brief, maybe clumsy introduction uh, to the shifting of the ages and why I feel like homeopathy is important. Um, and I just wrote down a few things about healing in this age. Um, that really disease is a means of evolution of consciousness and coming into again that Aquarian theme of individuation and self-actualization. Um, Aquarius also rules information. We've heard about the information age has arrived. Well, that's very much a keynote of the age of Aquarius. And so information on a subtle level, on an energetic level, is crucial. Is like the most important thing I think for healing to happen, whether it's consciousness, our own consciousness seeing and experiencing things, or having a memory come back up that helps us to release a pattern, or if it's a remedy or a flower essence or a frequency from a device that mirrors some energy that we're needing to experience. So it's giving information. Information is huge in this age for healing. And I already talked about kind of the transmutation of the collective. So it's interesting. The image of Aquarius is the water bearer. So it's the person who's come up. This is how, in my language, who's come up out of the water and they've transmuted their unique water into a blessing, and they're now giving that back to humanity. So they've been able to go through that hero or heroine's journey and bring their gifts, their light, their purpose into being to give back to humanity. This is really the high end, I think, of what we're here to do in the age of Aquarius, and that's going to look different for every one of us because each one of us have a very different evolutionary journey. Um, and then Leo is the opposite sign in the sky from Aquarius, so creativity is a big part of that, what we give back, and our uniqueness. So homeopathy is also known as Heilkunst, the art of salvation. This is what I think Hahnemann called it. Um, I don't speak German, so I can't verify that. But and this is kind of where I want to begin my story sharing. And so back in I think 2010, I was exposed to a form of homeopathy called Heilkunst. Maybe some of you have heard it. I think Rudy Vesper created it, and it's um, specifically a big part of it is doing a timeline, history timeline of trauma and shocks and difficulties that have happened in the life, and moving backwards in time from the current moment to the past, giving remedies over time to address each of those shocks. And so I spent a good, 2 years, probably 1.5, 2 years with a therapist, a homeopath who practiced this form. And we moved through lots of different things. And each time, I could feel I was ready to move through something else because some symptoms would kind of start popping up. Not always, but sometimes. Um, And we got back to a significant head injury that I had when I was 5, and traumatic event with my father. And we did some clearing with that, and then pretty quickly, I had some sensations coming up, um, in my genitals and in my legs that were kind of out of the ordinary for me. And because I'd been through this process with her, I recognized, oh, I think the next trauma is my circumcision. And so I talked with her and we did some remedies, and that kind of dissipated some of that energy. Um, I didn't continue on with Halkins, but I found it to be a really powerful methodology. Um, and then, I went to homeopathy school and um, did my own deep dive into the remedies, and taking taking remedies myself, often probably in ways that my teacher would have like freaked out about. Um, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who can relate to that possibility, especially if you've been drawn to like megapotencies. That's quite heretical in the classical homeopathy sense. So, you know, we're in good company. I'm a rebel. I love rebels, and it's okay to shake things up a bit. Um, let's see. Somebody just popped something. Thanks, Walter. Um, or I'm sorry if that was not your name, but thank you for uh, agreeing there. I'm in good company. I know I am. So I will just touch briefly into the megapotencies. Jill Turland is an Australian homeopath who practiced for. She's still. I think she's out of practice now, but she's practiced for many decades, for 4 decades, maybe longer. And she had a very strong intuition and guidance to really focus on 10 first aid remedies as like general thematic archetypal remedies for our time. And she wrote this book, Getting Back on Track. I highly recommend it, where she goes in depth into each of these remedies. Aconite, arnica, Staphysagra, hypericum. There's 10 of them. And she also, I think, got the idea maybe from Guru Das's flower essence book of using these very high potencies, because Guru Das would potentize some of his flower essences to 10 mm, which is 10 million C, cm being 100,000 C, mm 1 million, 10 mm is 10 million. But using these very high potencies to really address in a very deep way on etheric causal levels, the reason for suffering and disease. And specifically, she talks about this idea of guilt release, releasing guilt. And each remedy kind of addresses a different aspect of guilt. And I found megapotencies and her work back in, I think, June of 2000, no, of 2021. So it's been a little over 2 years ago now. Um, and just resonated immediately with her work. And it's like, wow, this is something I've got to investigate. And I had to, order all the remedies because I couldn't find them um, locally or anywhere else. And then eventually invested in a couple of radionics machines to be able to make my own remedies. Um, and had a really powerful experience initially with the first remedies I took. And I had this intuition to take 4 remedies at once. I took Staphysagra, aconite, Ignatia, and hypericum. And um, what surprised me about that, what happened after that, and it felt like really, I mean, I resonated with a lot of the remedies personally. Like they all resonated to me actually. Some more than others. Those 4 especially. And within a day or two of me taking those 4 remedies in 10 mm in combination, I took them all at once. and I took them for several days. I developed, hopefully this is not too personal or too much information for some of you, but I'm an ER nurse here. I'm okay with details. Um, so I invite you to be okay with me. Um, I developed a rash, a redness at the site of my circumcision where the foreskin was cut. And this was surprising to me. I'm like, why am I having this? And then I realized, oh, this is like a deeper expression of healing happening. Um, so, remember I showed you my chart and this need to go into really sexual healing. And I've had a number of recalls of past lives where I was castrated or sexually assaulted, abused. I won't go into those details, but this was really the first time that I had something manifest physically, outwardly, that pointed to this deeper healing happening. Um, and I've worked with some clients with megapotencies and found some really great movement. Like with anything, nothing is correct for everyone. I believe like not everyone is ready for megapotencies. There's other things maybe that are needing assistance first. But I have found them for me to be really powerful and needed. Um, I did have a client, and I've used more than the. I mean, I've used lots of different remedies in megapotency, so I don't limit myself to just these 10. I'm open to whatever remedy is appropriate for the client or for myself. I'm happy to go up to that level if it feels correct. And I had one client who was having difficulty walking. He had to go around in a wheelchair because he was losing his legs would buckle underneath him, and he couldn't stand, and he was afraid of really traumatizing and injuring himself. Um, so we came, after the consult and the case, I really felt Lathyrus sativa was a good remedy for him, because it has a lot of this weakness in the legs, and also this it kind of has some lycopodium issues around power, um, and feeling powerless and that kind of energy, mental state. So he took that in 10 mm and it just went away like within the first dose. For any, I think he's continued taking it. It's been a while since I followed up with him, but he was able to walk immediately. So some of these patterns are really deep, and if you can get the right remedy at the right potency. And the interesting thing, he had taken Lathyrus before, but not in a 10 mm. He'd taken it, I think, maybe in a 10 m or 200 C or something, and it helped, but the 10 mm really did the trick. Lathyrus, I believe I'm right on this. It's what is the name for that? Can't get out of this screen. I'll look at that later. So, so I think megapotencies have been really powerful. They've been huge for my own evolution. And along with the guilt, like guilt keeps us stuck. Are y'all, I just got a notification that my internet's unstable. Are y'all hearing me okay? I'm gonna just put in the chat, we're good, or unmute, that's fine. Thank you. Um, So guilt keeps us stuck. Now, there are three other things that I like to point out that keep us stuck, and that's hatred, bitterness, and shame. So guilt, shame, hatred, and bitterness will keep us stuck. Um, I don't know about you, but this is kind of how my nightstand has looked before, but probably not this neat. Much more messy, where I intuitively knew that I needed a lot of support, and I was having to pull from lots of different remedies, different potencies, and maybe for some people that would be judged as irresponsible. And for me, I just had an intuition and knowing that I was needing a broad base of support, and one remedy was not enough for me. And I believe my years of experience with astrology and intuitive healing work and working with parts and constellations within, um, I just had more, I guess, more space, more openness to the idea of like this idea of one remedy at a time doesn't really make sense to me. It never really made sense to me because I would be hearing a case in class and I'm like all these different remedies are coming and I can see parts like how these multiple remedies would be supportive for this person, but we had to narrow it down to one. We just had to because that's what we do. Um, so I'm very grateful that I found creative homeopathy because it really gave me the green light to it just, oh, I'm okay. I can relax. I like this is cool. Um, so Antoni Pepler is a German homeopath, was a German homeopath. She's died several years ago. Um, who was very intuitive. She was an artist. Um, she was kind of trained and raised up in anthroposophic understanding, so the works of Rudolf Steiner, um, and so a very non-ordinary way of viewing the world, very holistic. And she also was exposed and I think worked with or had exposure with family constellation work and Bert Hellinger's work. Um, so she kind of had this intuitive leap insight, excuse me, around using multiple remedies. And it's come to light from what I've learned from one of her students and also in her books. This is the first book I found, Homeopathy for Body and Soul, for a better understanding of the homeopathic anamnesis. She's also got she's got a number of books, but only four of them are in English. She's also got two remedy books, The Psychological Meaning of Homeopathic Remedies 1 and 2. And then she's also got a creative homeopathy book that's available from Narayana Verlag, I think. That is a collection of a bunch of articles that have been translated into English, and they're all really great books. Um, and I will be including my short notes on each of the remedies that she covers in the two volumes with the recording of this presentation, so you'll have access to that because I think it's really valuable to have that. It's better to get to go deeper in the book, but I think just to be able to access quickly what's the essence, what's the kind of snippet about this remedy, it's really helpful in choosing remedies to work with. Um, so it's come to light that Hahnemann, especially in his later years, was using multiple remedies with clients. I've heard as many as 8 or 9 remedies in a day. That's something that I never heard of in my training. Um, but I think there's been a lot of, butting heads and territorial fighting in homeopathy. I think with anything, I found that to be true in chiropractic when I studied chiropractic. Um, but it's normal. It's normal. So she kind of stepped outside. She just evolved homeopathy a little bit. I'm really grateful for what she brought. And so the three pillars of creative homeopathy are, of course, homeopathy, but then the psychology behind what's happening, and even more important is the language of the symptoms. So what is the disease? What are the symptoms the person is expressing? What is that actually communicating? Because I'm going to read some quotes from her books that I really love. Um, it's all about consciousness. It's all inside us. And so if we can understand what our unconscious, the body is the unconscious, if we can understand what our unconscious is saying to us, you know, and hopefully we can understand it before it has to get to a physical expression. But that's like, you know, especially in this information age where we're bombarded with experience and um, tension and stress, um, our body has to kind of take the hit. And, you know, it's not by accident that a certain part of the body develops a symptom. There's always purpose and meaning and yeah, reason for it. And then, she would also use high remedies, so 50 M and higher. She even collaborated with a quantum physicist to create a new potency called Li potency, which I believe I don't know if you can even access that potency. I think there's only like 2 or 3 machines made in the world that could create that potency. Um, but maybe you could do it like just radionically by saying that word. I choose to know what that would even do. I've never tried it. Might be worth experimenting with. Um, and she really saw homeopathy as more than just treatment of disease. It's really about spiritual medicine and evolution. So let me read a few quotes from Antoni. We become ill when we deny our individuality and are no longer authentic. I love this, and this really resonates with the work of Edward Bach, if you're a flower essence practitioner, and a lot of what he taught around the individuality and honoring the soul. That it was when we were out of alignment with our own soul and our own individuality is when we became ill. Um, she also says health means wholeness of mind. It is but logical that symptoms disappear as soon as transformation has taken place on a spiritual level. For matter is, as has been proven, but condensed energy. So it's that when we can take the remedy at a high enough potency and kind of get, I mean, even without remedies, our own consciousness, if we shift our consciousness, the symptoms that were based upon that uh, incoherence in our field have to shift. Sometimes they take a long time to shift because matter is slower than the spirit, right? So sometimes it takes patience. The homeopathic treatment always exposes the natural potential of a person. Here again, speaking to that evolution and purpose, spiritual medicine. And then just a few more quotes here. Lack of consciousness, remarkably suppressed consciousness, in other words, is always the cause of disease. Unfortunately, this knowledge has been almost completely lost to our abstract modern form of medicine. And I've often said that modern medicine is inadvertently and unknowingly impeding evolution because a lot of intervention in medicine is about suppressing symptoms, abating pain, abating this, getting rid of that. And sometimes those are very much necessary. But what are we losing as far as the impulse and the impetus to evolve and to grow? Her next quote, when giving high potencies, new symptoms can appear immediately. These are an expression of a further issue that is linked to the issue being treated, meaning that instead of it necessarily being assumed to be an aggravation, it's often and more likely to be the next link, or like a spider web, the next link in the chain of events that are linked together, and it just needs a new remedy. And this is part of why she came to multiple remedies. um, Everything that happens around us is a mirror of our inner self. Again, kind of linking back to my foundational principles, it's all inside us. um, Homeopathy as a form of therapy focuses upon the law of repetition, mirroring some unresolved dilemmas. When old traumas are viewed in the mirror and given a new impulse through the homeopathic remedy, they can be re-examined and emotionally balanced. Through this, people become liberated and more aware, and their life becomes more affluent. So I really just love her vision of homeopathy and what it's really about. Um, yeah, thanks, Linda. So this is a screenshot. The top picture is a screenshot from one of her books. She goes into a case of a woman who was almost sexually assaulted, um, was able to get away, and she treated her. And Tony used a program called Homeolog, um, that she had in her partner, her life partner was a computer programmer, and he created this program. And it was really the the introduction of computer technology into homeopathy that really kind of helped her to make this intuitive leap that multiple remedies are needed. So down here I have like a repertorization of a few symptoms, and you have next to it all these from my computer's program, because this I don't have this program, and it's not actually available in English, and it's pretty expensive. Um, I would love to, because it has the kind of the snippet or the essence of each of her essence of each of the remedies listed next to each remedy. But essentially, you take your symptoms, and instead of just looking at the one, maybe that has the highest number of hits, or the one in the top number, whatever your repertorization style is, there's lots of different ways to repertorize. Um, Instead of just taking that one remedy, it's kind of looking at, well, what if all of these remedies have something to say, to contribute to the complex, and what if we can support the person more holistically, that instead of giving a remedy where we untie this particular aspect of the knot or the web, we can start to hold the person from multiple perspectives and allow a gentler unfolding, and a clearer, cleaner mirror. So it's like instead of the remedy creating more symptoms on a physical level, by supporting the person more holistically in this way, it actually facilitates the shift in the consciousness or awareness much more quickly, um, because it's not being so distracted by, oh, here's a new symptom, here's whatever it is. So at least this is what I noticed for myself and for some clients that I've had, because I admit I'm no expert in this. I'm playing with it, and it makes intuitive sense to me because of my astrology work and all my other work. So it just resonated so deeply immediately. But so I'm learning and growing with it, and loving it. Um, And Andrew's saying, I firmly believe that a combination of remedies reaches things in a person that a single remedy will not. Same for megapotencies versus lower potencies. Um, I honestly don't think Years of 200C will reach these deep issues. I agree. And there's more to that to be revealed here. So we're getting there. Are y'all doing okay? I hope this is making sense and that you're intrigued and open to what's being shared. Um, uh, So, so this is how I kind of use creative homeopathy. In a way, I'll take a case and I will plug in key symptoms, and I will look at the remedies that show up, and see, do they match? Do they feel like they're part of the complex? And I also look at the person's chart, because the astrology chart really reveals some of this deeper why. And so if you can have that deeper understanding of what's going on, and you can use human design, you can use, whatever your tool might be of being able to understand someone at a very deep level. Because if you can match remedies to that deep understanding, it can be really beautiful. And I also incorporate flower essences, and um, So in this case, she gave all these remedies to this person. So Lachesis arnica, arsenicum, china, hyoscyamus, creosotum, lycinum, sepia, and others. Um, and the story in the book is really phenomenal to read. So it's worth checking that out. Um, yeah, it can be hard. It can be really slow, and it can be really slow to work classically. And sometimes if you land on a really like fundamental remedy that's so matches you, it can be magical. And I've seen that happen with people. But it's not really been my experience for myself. And I think it's a good time for me to mention that, in the chart, in the astrology chart, there's indicators of like how many aspects are there to Pluto. Pluto is like the deepest wound in our being. And so if you have Pluto aspecting lots of planets in your chart, that's a really good indicator that you came into this incarnation with the intention of working on a lot of stuff. Like you signed up for a whole lot. And not every soul is willing to do that. It takes brave souls. And I think there's a lot of us who are light workers here who signed up to take on a whole heap of ancestral karma. And so for us, there's a complexity to the suffering that we are encountering or dealing with, and one remedy, just in my opinion, is not enough to deal with that level of complexity. Um, so, and I do believe it can be easy. My belief is that healing can be easy. Doesn't mean it's going to be that it's not challenging, um, but I think it can be easy. Um, all right, let's move forward here. So I'm going to give an example of one of her remedies. She talks about pulsatilla. Many of us know that remedy. Um, so her essence is buries the head in the sand, lack of confrontation. So if you think about someone who is putting their head in the sand and avoiding confrontation, what could happen if you give them pulsatilla, right? So these are other remedies she talks about that are kind of linked to what might happen or what might get triggered, maybe other remedy states that come up when you give somebody pulsatilla. These are just some examples. It's not exhaustive list at all. But feeling like they don't belong because they they they've kind of belonged because they put their head in the sand and they haven't confronted anything. So when they confront, when they're given more energy to be able to confront, then they might encounter their dependency and their lack of belonging, um, and where they have been they have been relying on support from people that are maybe not correct for them, or where they've needed to really just take ownership for themselves. So um, every remedy has information and holds a mirror, and can potentially link to more information or more remedies that are needing to be considered. I hope that makes sense. And you can get a sense of this more by reading her two remedy volumes, because she goes into this with each remedy she covers. I think she covers over 300 remedies in those two volumes. So it's a really good introduction. I wish I had more access to her other volumes of work that are still in German. Um, so what got challenging for me, and she does have an English ambassador, Christian Holert, who lives I think, in Europe. He does have a website, creative-homeopathy.com, I believe is the URL. I'll include it in the follow-up email from this recording. Um, and his website is a wealth of information, lots of articles, lots of stuff that he has translated into English. Um, and Tony entrusted him as being the English ambassador of her work, because all of her teaching is in German. And I have had a consult with him, which was great, and and just started playing with myself because I just needed a little bit of a push, and I'm like, okay, I'm good. Um, and I've used a radio. This is a radionics machine here, but it's limited, like because I was creating I call them constellation remedies with 100 remedies, uh, maybe even more than 100 remedies. And it would take me 30, 45 minutes, 60 minutes on this machine just to create that remedy. And I would use little vials and put them on the end plate so I could maximize my input as much as possible. Um, and then, of course, playing with potency, 50 MCM higher, um, and I just got to the point like this is a little bit cumbersome. I need to find something else, something that can make this easier. Um, and I've looked at some of the voice radionics makers, and that felt maybe a little easier, but not quite what I was looking for. I was looking for something more computer based or software, an app driven, um, that wasn't like going to break the bank. Um, so this is I actually got introduced to Healy and actually the time waver through Christian Collard, because he talked about how a lot of the creative homeopaths in Europe, because most of them are in Germany or in Europe, um, use the time waver, which is a um, quantum frequency device, that can also create remedies, but you can put it all in the computer. And so I looked into time waver initially, and I was like, this is a big leap. We're talking about 20 grand, and more to get the functionality that you need. Plus, it's a huge, huge, huge learning curve. Maybe at some point I will go down that road because there's lots of potential with that device and that technology. It's pretty freaking amazing. Um, but then the creator of the time waver, Marcus Schmieke here, he also decided had the inspiration that he desired to get this technology into much more people's hands, um, uh, where there's not a huge learning curve, and we can just connect it to our smartphone and have these experiences. So Healy came into my life in June, late June, early July of this year. And this is kind of where the story gets really interesting, which I'll get back to in a moment. So Healy is a wearable healing technology. It's individualized microcurrent frequency. And just real quickly, Mark Schmieke is a mystic. He was a Vedic monk in maybe in India. That may have happened in Germany, but he was a Vedic monk for over 12 years. And he realized that the monastic life was not really for him. He was called to work in the world, and he had this calling to bridge spirituality and technology for the evolution of humanity. And he got together with a quantum physicist after he left the monastery and learned a bunch of stuff. He was always already a trained quantum scientist, quantum physicist himself, um, but he developed this technology called a quantum sensor. So this makes Healy and Time Waver really unique in this industry, um, because instead of this being bioresonance technology, which is you know there's machines that connect to the person and kind of read off of the physiology of the person to make assessments, to make therapies and treatments. The quantum sensor connects to the quantum field, the information field of the person. So it's not tied to the body, where this is dense. It's taken time for things to come to manifest at this level. to be able to connect to like our original blueprint in the information field, the Akash. It's the same thing as the information field or the quantum field. It's all interchangeable terms. Um, to get the information that is resonant with the person, it's a much higher and more accurate and quicker way of working. And so the Healy kind of works with a couple different ways of delivering the frequencies. There's you can plug in wires and put them on these wrist straps. Um, you can also put electrodes on different parts of the body that you want to like maybe locally affect. But the Healy will deliver microcurrent, which has the ability, which really increases the voltage of our cells, and that just the microcurrent itself is huge because it really brings energy. If you know, cancer and disease are really related to lack of energy, and so increasing the microvoltage of the cell membrane um, goes a far way to improve health in and of itself. But what the Healy does is it kind of carries the frequencies on that microcurrent electrical wave into the body so that frequencies and that information can come in directly into the cells on that microcurrent energy. So it's a really ingenious way to deliver the information. And then there's also like it can be cumbersome, you know, if you need to be out and about. Wearing wires on your wrists, there's also a Tesla coil that you can plug into the back of this device. And you know, like I'm wearing it right now using a coil, a Tesla coil, and that just puts the information into my immediate field. Um, you know, Nikola Tesla said, if you want to find the secrets to the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And that's really a lot of what we've been talking about. So I'm just going to share some screenshots from this device, and then I'm going to, you know, once I kind of give you a quick overview of this device, I'm going to share an experience I had with it that blew my mind. That was awe-inspiring. Um, so this is the individualized microcurrent frequency program with all. I have the professional version, so I've got access to all of these different um, program groups. And so there's, just to give you a sense of like what this covers, it's they purposefully don't go into a lot of detail on what's included in each of these programs. Each of these programs includes hundreds, you know, dozens, hundreds, maybe more frequencies that the Healy will, um, with that quantum sensor, will assess, you know, what frequency you're needing. You know, so it's not just willy-nilly giving you every frequency in the program. It's going to tailor it individually for you, and give you the frequencies that you're needing right now, um, to support you. So that's what's really beautiful about this device is that individualized aspect. I love the pure programs they recommend starting here. And so each one of these opens up a different page of programs. There's more than 200 programs, I think, in the professional version. These are all pain programs that you can apply locally for like headaches, toothache, the back. And I think Healy is actually approved as a medical device. Um, I really love these job programs. Um, they help me at work, activation, positive thoughts, balance nerves. Bed rest is a really good one for bringing on the parasympathetic and augmenting the vagus nerve. Um, there's fitness programs, there's chakra programs for every chakra, there's meridian programs for every meridian. There's just it's a lot. It does a lot, but you know, this is one of the cool things I love about Healy is the resonance scan app that has databases So this one has the Alaskan gem elixirs in it, the Australian bush flowers, the Bach flower remedies. It has a courage database, which is interesting. It has 27 Schussler salts, the I Ching, and then, of course, creative homeopathy. It's got 347 remedies um, that in the database that the quantum sensor, when it does a scan, will scan your field and see what are the top 5 remedies in that database that you're most resonant with at this time. And then you can send them to yourself in the moment, right there, wherever you are. You can also scan what actually other frequency programs that I just talked about. You can scan what programs are correct for you at this time, and then go deliver those programs to yourself. So it 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 has the frequency delivering capacity, but it also has this informational piece that's really beautiful. Um, so this is a creative homeopathy scan I did yesterday. Um, and so it takes it a few moments to just scan through the 347 remedies. And then it gives me 5. I wish I could choose 20, 30, 40, 50, but five is what it gives you right now. Um, and this is an interesting potency. This is an X potency of, what is that? 299 million. Interesting potency. Um, and it gives you what each remedy is, what it's harmonizing, sacrificing one's life for others. That's used to Lago. That makes sense to me, And every time I do this, like it makes sense, or it gives me pause and makes me think, okay, there's something I'm missing here. There's something I'm needing to tune into. And and then I can vibrate these remedies to myself for a minute, for 15 minutes, an hour, 4 hours, however long I want to do that. Um, and yes, you can scan and deliver remotely. Um, so this I have myself in my phone. So this is all in your phone. You can have as many clients in there as you want, and with this resonance app specifically, you can't do it with microfrequency because microfrequency is different and it needs to be delivered locally. So this device works in multiple ways. This resonance function you can work with anyone in the world. You can work with anything. You can work with your animals. You could put your work, your business into the app as a client, and then do a scan on your business to see, like, what am I missing? What what are some areas that I'm needing to focus on? And then you can treat your business. You can treat your daughter from across the country. Um, So I really love this creative homeopathy database. But it gets more interesting because this device will also scan your aura. And you can do this with anyone in the world as well. You can do it remotely because the quantum sensor is working in a quantum way. There's no space, there's no distance. And it's really, I've done this with people, someone in Thailand, and sent her the results because you can export it as a PDF, and so they can read through what all the Healy comes up with, and she was just kind of blown away by the accuracy. I've been impressed again and again, and sometimes it'll bring up something for me to look at that I'm not quite, what's that? And then, like, the next day, I'm experiencing what the Healy was picking up. So it's such a game changer for me as far as um, really partnering with the spirit of this age, technology, in a way that feels really good and powerful, um, and really in alignment. I mean, intuitively, when I have felt into Healy, it feels like a quantum bridge between where we are and the new humanity that's really desiring to manifest, because it's connecting us to our original blueprint and helping us to make steps to evolve. And people talk about the evolution they go through with this device, and upgrading their intuition and their relationships and all these different things. So I promise you, I'm getting to the point of the other aspect of my story. Um, so there's also a coaching analysis. So this is where you can put in an intention that you create, and the Healy will scan and kind of give you the areas of your life that are maybe challenged around this intentional focus, and then it will analyze that and create a list of informational remedies that that you can then send to yourself and support a shift around a particular intention or focus. So when I when I first got the Healy, I kind of, and based on some of the things that I was watching on YouTube, and I was like, this is a radionics device. Um, Maybe it can't like create remedies physically, but it's sending remedies radionically, scalar. Um, so I was like, I bet I could copy and paste, because I have this list of remedies in my notes app that I'm desiring to take. And I got to break out all those remedies, or write down all these rates I got to put in my machine. Um, it was just cumbersome. And so one day I just had this intuition, okay, it's time. I need to do that. I just need to try this. Let's do it. So I opened up, I think this was back in July actually. So this is a more recent screenshot here, but I just opened up one of the scans that I did. I did actually, I added it to an entry. I just copied and pasted the remedies into the Healy, the app. And then I chose a potency. And up to this time, so the highest potency I'd ever taken was a CMM, so 100 million C. And I found CMM to be actually very gentle. Um, and I was able to make a shift with my family that I'd been really desiring to make for a very long time, that I just couldn't quite get over this barrier. And when I took Staphylococcus aureus CMM, it was effortless. Um, wasn't easy, but it was effortless. It wasn't an easy decision to come to, but it was effortless. Um, so CMM was the highest potency I'd ever taken. Um, well, I was looking at the potency selection in the app, like, well, I didn't do LM 1E36. I did C 1E24, which is 1 septillion. So if you look at this, it's one with 24 zeros behind it. And 10 mm, actually the highest potency I'd taken was here. So we're talking about exponentially bigger potency than I'd ever taken before. I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm curious, and I'm a bit of a rebel, and I like to be adventurous. So I use coaching and analysis, and the aura or the coaching can do this. You need to be able to have the aura or the coach function in order to be able to paste in a list of remedies. Um, so I'm sitting on my bed. I hit vibrate to myself for like an hour. Um, and immediately I'm like, my nervous system is on edge, and I feel an activation. I'm like, whoa, this is intense. And I take a breath and I check in with myself. I'm okay here, and I feel like this is good. I can stay with this. I'm good. So I laid back on the bed and I just went into meditation. And the thread around circumcision that I've been talking about came up instantly. It wasn't something on my mind. It just came up. And it was like I was, as an adult in that moment, on the table being circumcised. And I felt amazingly supported in what I was experiencing. So it was like I didn't feel like I needed to run. I felt I could stay with what I was experiencing. And I felt this activation in my nervous system. I could see the doctor, a silhouette, and my dad I knew was present at my circumcision as well. So I saw him, and all these, it's like all this hate, this rage came up, this there lots of you can imagine a gamut of emotions came up. It was like a little shamanic journey, really. I also saw lives, those lives came back up where I had had trauma, sexual trauma. I also had women in my ancestry come up. Um, and I could feel their rage toward the masculine and how the masculine had violated them. And they all this like pent up stored rage in the female line. And it was like, whoa, it was just a revelation. And I came to this place of thanking the doctor, thanking my father, thanking myself for the experience that I was going through. Um, Huge leap from, you know, this whole arc of things. So it was this interesting just gestalt of experience that I went through to come to a place of gratitude and actually like seeing the purpose and the meaning of it, and how this trauma to my masculinity, to my sexuality was a gift to me. um, that it gave me the opportunity to recover, to go through a journey of recovery and authority, stepping into my authority, to my power, um, that was taken from me back then, that I actually gave up. I believe that I signed up for that experience, and I'm grateful for it. So that in and of itself was a huge experience. And right after I kind of came to all that, I just dropped into a very deep meditation. It was very like one of the most deep, profound, parasympathetic types of experiences I'd had in my life. And I could feel like my whole nervous system was getting rewired in a way. And what happened besides that experience was that my lifelong, really addiction to sugar was gone. It just was gone. Like I would sit down and eat a pint of ice cream like every night, no problem. Binge eating was a thing. It was just something that I could not control, and I tried so many things. So many remedies you can imagine, lots of remedies, um, therapy, healing work, all these things to try to shift this pattern of just falling into this uh, numbing pattern of eating and kind of numbing myself out. And come to find out, it was so linked to that trauma, and the trauma that I carried into this life from those other lifetimes. I didn't want to go there, but this potency gave me the support to go there. Um, and so, I mean, I don't think I've had a pint of ice cream in months now. So this was July. I haven't had a pint of ice cream since July. Um, so my diet shifted dramatically. Something lifelong struggle. And I have that South Node in Taurus, which kind of has that connection karmically to comfort eating. So it even shows up in my chart that that's a pattern potential for me. Um, so yeah, this experience with the so I will I will say, if this is something that you desire to experience, trust yourself, your intuition, like, consider it, feel into it, pendulum it, muscle test it, whatever your tools are. I think this is something that you need to consciously walk into, and not just willy-nilly, ooh, let's have an experience. Let it be purposeful and sacred for you. Um, I found this potency to be amazingly gentle for me, because it's like that high potency is able to kind of like move through. the resistance in our field with ease because it's so fine, it can move through the field. Um, but I will say this was such a fundamental shift for me. I mean, I had chosen to be an ER nurse. I was every day that I went to work, I was face to face with the trauma that I was not able to encounter in me. So it was like I was working in a profession that where I was attempting to, on an unconscious level, through a mirror, an outer mirror of my work, I was attempting to resolve trauma in myself. And so if you think about how big of a shift is it to kind of resolve that need, and what are the ramifications as that healing really starts to settle in. And I really feel like this experience is why I had my car accident in August. Um, and that felt like a healing reaction to me. It was like the trauma moving out of my body into the physical body of my car, and also having some effect on my physical body too. I mean, I broke my fuck you finger, right? So this is this, kind of linked to sexuality and also the hatred and anger that had come up. So it's all purposeful, it's all meaningful, it all has intention, it's all sacred. So I'm still in the process of this experience rippling out into a huge transformation of my life because it's so core. Um, I hope that makes sense. And have I used this potency? Yes, I have. How you choose that potency? It's in the Healy. It's in the ability. When you can add an entry, and there's a toggle around the potency, and you can scroll through all the potencies, and this is one of them. Um, I have used this potency through other things as well. But that was the most obvious experience that I had with it. It was big. So I want to share a little bit about what these potencies are according to Healy's own documentation and time waiver, and because you will have things pop up in your aura analysis or your coach analysis, and it will say 1E6, 1E12, 1E24. This means that it's coming from prior to this life. Either karmically it's coming from another incarnation or lifetime on the sixth level. You get so I was working at this level, so it was coming from grandparents level. um and I know there was sexual abuse and on that level. And I don't know, my sense is that this isn't pigeonholed to that specific level. I think, when you're working in these huge potencies, I mean, even a 12C can work karmically, right? But it's really tailored to be working at these deeper levels. And I feel like for some of us who have signed up for big stuff, to shift big stuff in us, to aid the planetary evolution, because it's we're transmuting stuff in us, it's going to have ripple effects in our world, right? Beyond what we can even perceive. So being able to address these deeper levels is important, and it needs to be probably done consciously, right? I think what I have gained from my work with creative homeopathy and then Healy now, um, I don't like I have a lot of trust in life and in healing and in homeopathy. I'm not afraid of homeopathy. I'm not afraid of taking the wrong remedy or the wrong potency. I really do trust that it's all for my good. Um, and and I'm not coming at it from a reckless place. I'm coming at it from an intentional, like, sacred, prayerful, contemplative place. Um, so this might be something worth looking into if you desire to do some deeper shifting of some patterns that maybe have been recalcitrant to other potencies, other remedies, other modalities. Um, just pray about it, think about it, meditate on it, contemplate whatever you do. Um, if maybe one of these would be good for you. And um, it's been powerful for me. So I'd like to just talk a little bit about um, the different models of Healy. There's about 5 different models, but these two right here are the ones that have the capacity to do the aura scan in the coaching module. So the professional and the resonance plus. There's also a Healy resonance that can do the creative homeopathy scan and scanning the flower essences and the Schussler salt. So that can be really great too. But if you desire to work with Healy for your own homeopathic work, these are one of these 2 models would be necessary. Um, there are some specials currently in November. I think actually Black Friday specials are probably going to be released in the near future and will probably be even better than this. So you have the Healy Resonance that doesn't have the aura or the coaching, um, which you can get for just under 1,000, which including a coil, which is the coil itself is about a $250, $300 investment. So all these are coming with a free coil right now. Um, and you see the prices here. I'll just leave this up if you want to take a screenshot um, or come back to this later. Um, this is a really great deal for the professional. It also includes a Soul Cycle, which is a group of programs that I desire to invest in because they're really unique programs. Um, and you also get the coil as well and the travel case and all that. So lots. I mean, there's just a lots to play with here. A lot to support yourself in your healing journey. Um, so if you feel called, no pressure, obviously, but if you feel called to something like this, to partnering with a technology that can really help your own evolution and growth and help your clients, help your family, your loved ones, um, I am truly grateful for this technology. Um, so that's really the end of my presentation. Here is my website address if you desire to reach out to me, if you want to work with me, desire an astrology reading or to do deeper, work with homeopathy or any flower essences, because I do combine them. I don't just stick with homeopathy. Um, and here is my link to my Healy store. I am a uh, affiliate of Healy. Um, and yeah, I'm happy to share with uh, with you. And feel free to reach out to me if you have questions. And I will keep everyone up to date on the specials that are coming out later this month. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and just see if there's any short questions. We still have like maybe 5 minutes. Uh, and I'm happy to answer any questions if I can. Yeah, thanks, Darlene. Is one dose enough at this higher potency? You know, I think the one dose for me with that experience was enough. Um, but I have also, so with Antoni's work, she recommended people take the remedy twice a day. So you're talking about taking 50 mcm higher twice a day and even carrying the bottle on their person so that it was actually affecting their information field all the time. So, I do have some constellations that I'm currently working with on my Healy or a constellation that I send to myself probably at night for an hour, once a night, and sometimes twice a day. Um, and that doesn't feel like too much. So, um, what's my process for repertorizing with creative homeopathy? Um, so I think repertorization is helpful, is really helpful. So I just take the symptoms that feel like they're really pivotal to the case and unique, as much unique as possible. I like to use Jeremy's Q rep as well because he's got some interesting um, mind symptoms that are helpful. Um, and so I will repertorize that, and then I typically will look through the top, you know, however many remedies till I get to a point where I feel like it's really intuitively led. I really trust my intuition because typically every remedy, that comes up matching most of the symptoms feels correct for the person. When I look at the essence of the remedy, it's like, yes, this feels correct. When I look at their chart, yes, this feels correct. Um, but I don't always feel like everything is covered in the list. So I will feel into I will use Michaelia Kerr's um, plant table. I will use there's some new stuff that I've learned about how to use the astrology chart to key in on remedies. I will use that. Um, I'll use the mineral table. Um, and just I'll just intuitively I'll go in and I'll just feel like, okay, does this feel like this person is supported enough? And then, then um sometimes I have to take things out because they're not quite ready for that part, or we'll start the remedy and there's something that comes up that was missed, and so we have to add in a remedy or two to support that. So you can play with it. I think there's a lot of room for forgiveness and just playing with creative homeopathy. And I'd love to be able to learn more. Maybe I can get Christian to teach some or something. But um, yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments? Does that answer your question, Ashley? Okay, good. So have you ever worked with healing the organs in the body with the Healy? So I am working with my liver currently, um, and my kidneys. Not that there's anything grossly wrong, but there's meridian programs to address different organ systems. There's like a thyroid harmony, pineal gland. I mean, you can address pretty much every organ with the Healy. Um, and yeah, so there's lots of different programs to use, and there's actually even 12 spaces in the Healy for you to be able to actually purchase expert programs from time waiver practitioners around the world that you can actually download into your Healy. So I have a few expert programs that I've purchased and from a practitioner in England, um, to send to myself. One of those is a self-love program. It's really beautiful. I feel it supported my process of really receiving and healing as I've healed from my accident. Um, was that 24 zeros after the one for the potency you used? Yes, that was 1E24. And I would actually recommend using that nomenclature if you're going to try to use that in some kind of radionics device. Just use 1E24 or 1E36 or 1E12. Um, you know, have you heard of anyone healing the pancreas for people with type 1 diabetes? I've heard of some people shifting their diabetes with the Healy, but there is a Facebook group that has lots and lots of testimonials of people who've done things with their Healy. So I can probably include that link in the follow-up email. But specifically for type 1, I have not heard that specifically. Quantum biofeedback machines. I don't know what quantum biofeedback machines really are. I mean, I know of bioresonance machines, but I'm not sure. So the question is, can you explain the difference a bit? The difference is a bit between the Healy and quantum biofeedback machines. No, I apologize. I can't answer that. And let me see. I'll post that link real quick. Well, it was a pleasure to share with you guys. Thanks for taking your time to be here. And yeah, I wish you all the best and happy healing. Stay the course, be courageous, don't be afraid to step outside the box. And thanks for all you're already doing and being. You're welcome. Have a good day, everyone.